So now we are absolutely moving to the incomparable phone guy, AKA known as Chèrie Lewis, because in the beginning he was called the phone guy. Why? Because first of all, he's tall, so he towered over everybody, but he was always on the phone, always on the phone. And he was one of those that I would go and stand behind and he didn't even know it. And I would listen to him talk on the phone and how he talked to people. So y'all, we get to now hear from the amazing Chèrie Lewis before we bring on Mary to bring us on home. Chèrie, welcome.
Well, welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, my video's on. Okay. Well, I'm very grateful to be here with all of you. And I'm just honored to be with this legacy panel. I mean, like everyone that spoke, Anna Maya, Kathy, Terry, Carl, everybody who shared, Nancy, oh my God, are just amazing people. Nancy taught my first class. Our first class Nancy taught. She came out and taught a raindrop. That was the first class that I got the great honor to be involved with. She came and taught at a church for us. And and she just piles and piles and piles of information that just absolutely blew us away. So I'm Chèrie Lewis. I'm from New Jersey. I had no background in the beginning of this in essential oils. I knew nothing about essential oils. I wanted to know nothing about essential oils. When I first got started, my great, wonderful wife, Gail Green, who was born on the same day as Chèrie, they're like sisters. Yes, so I had the great fortune. Gail and I got introduced to the oils by a Native American, Milo Fat Beaver, and Beth Hedstrom, and they were in New Jersey in the end of 1996, and they were doing healing classes, and they were doing these wonderful shamanic healing classes and working on people. And they worked on Gail Ann, and I got a session for Gail Ann Christmas time, and she had an amazing session, and she felt absolutely fantastic. And they used eagle feathers and hawk feathers and Momo feathers, and they sat like 6 or 8 feet away from her and just shifted her energy, and she felt wonderful. And at the end of her healing session, Beth walked up to her and said, I would love to share some essential oils with you. And Gail Ann said, no, thank you. All essential oils I've ever used made me feel ill. And Beth said to her, I assure you, these are different. And Gail Ann had know, like, and trust, and that's the key to the business, and that's how we built our business, is through know, like, and trust. And Gail Ann received her first Young Living essential oils, which was Release, Joy, White Angelica. And she shifted even more, and she was powerfully like rocked, and it was like, oh my God, she said she couldn't even feel even better. And then she came out of her healing session, and from across the room, I started smelling this smell, and I was like, what the hell is that? And when she got to me, I hugged her, and I couldn't stop hugging her because that was the power of the essential oils. They emotionally got into us, and I just couldn't believe it. And I had the great fortune that Kathy Farmer is my upline, and Carl is my upline, and Vicky is my upline. So I have a very powerful lineage of people that have taught me so much over the course of all these years since 1996. But in the beginning, for me, it was our love of the oils, Gail Ann's love of the oils. I basically still didn't think, because as a male, I'm one of the few male Royal Crown diamonds really that is built. And in the beginning, I was like, oils and men doing this? I was like, nah. This is not, especially like back then, there was no books, there was nothing. We had our little, what did we have when we got started? We had the Gary Young story. We had the 4-page price list. We had the Missing Link CD, cassette tape, and that was it. We had like no tools. There was nothing to build here. And I've been doing network marketing since 1972. So I'm like saying, well, these are cute they're nice. They make you smell good, make you feel good. But as a business, there's no business here. So, but I loved the products, and we were very broke at that time. Way back then, we were so broke. We didn't even have 80. That we didn't have the money for an Essential 7, and I dug it out because I have all kinds of stuff here in my office. And look at this, an original Essential 7 in the plastic box.
Oh my gosh, Jeffrey.
An original Essential 7. And that's how you got started, with an Essential 7 and a bottle of Valor. And
Yes.
we didn't have, it was $80. I didn't have $80. Gail-Ann didn't have $80. So we had to save for 2.5 weeks to get an Essential 7 and a bottle of Valor. And I was driving a very dilapidated car at that time. So I need to go into the car thing a little later, because Terry Seacrest starts talking about cars and car bonuses. And that's a very funny story. So, so we saved for 2.5 weeks, and then we finally got our money. We ordered our oils, and they came on a Tuesday, and we put them on in the morning when they came, and we felt better. And that's what the key for us. And we put them on in the afternoon, and we felt better. We put them on that night, and we felt better. And then we did that every single day for the next week. And we were like, what is this stuff? Every time you put it on, you feel better. It was scary. It was like, we don't know what it was. We didn't know anything about it. Finally, we called Milo and Beth, and they said, we're getting these oils and we're kind of liking them, but can you teach us? And Milo says, no, well, I'm kind of busy. I'm traveling. I'm doing these shamanic sessions. I don't have time. But call this woman Vicky. And I said, call this woman Vicky. He said, call Vicky. And back then, people don't realize, this is vintage back in the day of network marketing. Every call was a toll call back then. So every town you called, if you called 10 miles away, it was a toll call. If you called 20 miles away, it cost you more money. If you called Colorado, it cost you more money. If you called California, it was outrageous. And guess what? For me being a network marketer, I was acquiring phone bills of $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 phone bills. So from calling people on the phone in different times and different things. But Milo says to us, this woman, Vicky, has something very special. She has an 800 number. And I was like, we were blown away. 800 number. That means we can call her. We don't get charged for it. We were so freaking happy. And then Gail-Ann decided to call Vicky one day, and she thought she'd be on the phone 10 minutes. Vicky was on the phone with her for 2.5 hours. And she finally said to me, Jeff, you got to listen to this woman. She has all this knowledge, and you got to listen. So I started listening to these phone calls, and Vicky started teaching us and sending us packets and talk about, I forget who talked about mailings and going to the post office. Maybe it was Anna Meyer or somebody. We, in the beginning, started getting packets, and I lived at the phone. I knew every post office in every town because I would mail packets to people, and the packets they started out small, and then they got to an inch thick, and I would mail of all this information that I got on essential oils. I would be mailing these packets everywhere. Every day I would be mailing 10, 15, 20 packets, because there was no internet. There was no way to share. There was no EDRs. There was nothing. So it just absolutely, blew me away. But I finally used the oils for a while. I didn't join. Gail-Ann joined first in 1996. I didn't join until 6 months later. And the only reason I joined under Gail-Ann, was I was using her oils every day. And she finally told me, you're cut off. You can't use my oils anymore. She cut me off. She says, you're done. You can't use my oils. You got to buy your own. So that's the only reason I joined Young Living, was I had to buy my own oils. So I had to buy my own. I started with my own Essential 7. And I don't know, these things are like cocaine. I was like addicted to them. I started with 50, and then it went to 75, then it went to 100, then it went to 150, then it went to 200, then it went to 300 each. And we were like, shit, every month we want more. I want more. I want different oils. And so finally, well, Galen started to share with people and we started to put oils on people. I started to put oils on people because I couldn't afford them and I needed to pay for my cocaine habit, my habit. It was like, I was so addicted to these oils. So it was really an amazing start to our journey. And I learned a lot of the oils. And I think my first introduction to Gary, I got invited to a conference in Utah in a blinding snowstorm. We got out to Utah and we were at this big conference. Not big, wasn't big. It was like 100 people there in a blinding snowstorm. And Gary taught and Vicky invited us to go. And I met all these people and I was like, I was very blown away in my beginnings of Young Living of what I learned and what I saw. And what I basically saw in the beginning, there was not a lot of diversity here in the beginning. There was a lot of old white people here. there was no diversity. I have to tell you that. There was no, I'll be honest with you, there was no diversity. There were a lot of older white people that loved Gary Young, that followed him, that bought oils and bought them consistently over and over again. I said, well, I would go talk to people and I say, well, are you sharing with anybody? No, I just like Gary and I follow what he says and I buy oils. And have you ever shared with anybody? No, I spend $300-400 a month every month. I was like, oh my God, what is this? It's a product that people just buy. They don't sign up to anybody. And in my experience of being a network marketer, I was like, people just don't buy products and not share. They were in it for the healing, not for the business opportunity. So it's been an amazing journey to follow Gary. And I have some photos. I don't know if they want to bring up a couple of the photos that I have of different things. Bring up one of the photos. Okay, this is a photo of us on the first platinum trip. Carl, do you remember that platinum trip? That amazing platinum trip. We were on the platinum trip. Doug Mills, Melvin Peachy. This was a bunch of Kathy and Jill, a bunch of us on that small platinum trip. There were about, I think there were like 35 of us. And we went on this platinum trip to Ecuador and we traveled from one side of Ecuador to the other side to get to the farm. We stopped at a different hotel every night and Gary would teach us every night and we'd be on the buses and we had the best time. This was one of the highlights of my life was to go on this trip to Ecuador. I just was like, Mary wasn't there for this trip for some reason. I don't know why Mary wasn't with us at that time. Maybe she was back home with the kids, but it was an amazing, amazing journey to go on that trip and to be with, and platinum trips now, like Mary just got back from the platinum trip and she said there were like, I think like 300 people there and about 800 people from the other countries couldn't get there because of travel restrictions. So it was so unbelievable to be with Gary with 35 people. Gary to me was the greatest man I've ever met. He is a visionary and someone who, not only a visionary, he put what he thought into action. He created stuff, he moved stuff, he got things to happen. He was always hardest working, first person up, last person down. He changed my life. He changed my life being with him. And he taught me more about manifesting than anybody else I've ever met. He was the greatest manifester because whatever Gary thought, and Mary knows this, and Mary's going to speak in a few minutes, whatever Gary thought, and we all kind of laughed and said, well, that's impossible. Nothing was impossible to this guy. And some people talked about his vision and Terry talked about his plans for the farm. Gary was so far ahead of all of us because of his ability to connect to God. He was God-driven and he connected to that power that was so powerful for him to be able to move things in a positive direction. So I'm just blown away by that. So we can take that picture down. And then, be the change you wish to see in the world. And that's what I believe Young Living is to me, is this is the ability to change people's lives, and everyone's talked about it, how the products literally change people's lives. And but through the use of these oils, for me not wanting to be involved with the oils and for me using the oils, I now use 20 oils first thing to start my day. And then I use Young Living products when I shower. And then I use Young Living products when I make my smoothie. So, but I started my day within an hour and a half, I've used 35 or 40 different Young Living products. So that's been very, very life-changing for me. And then I got to travel around a lot with Gary and learn a lot. And we talk about the Seventh Heaven kit. Here is a Seventh Heaven kit. So can we bring that up? I could show people. Here's a Seventh Heaven kit. Here's an original Seventh Heaven kit. So I have all these vintage kits here in my office. A Seventh Heaven kit. This is the original Seventh Heaven kit with all the goodies. So just amazing. I have an original Golden Touch 1 kit. So I have all these different kits from all my travels and all the different times of, building a business. I probably have $100,000 worth of oils here. I have so many oils. All of us, we have all these oils. We got stockpiles of oils and oils and oils. And I'm just so blessed because it's an honor for me because these are powerful healing tools. And Gary has taught me. And then our trips to Egypt, Chèrie, you went on a couple of our trips to Egypt, and what I learned, and with Kathy and Carl, the trips were like mind-blowing. And the places Gary would take us into the pyramids, into the tombs, into sacred chambers. I got into a sacred chamber, I forget, in some place where Mary hid out with Jesus, and they hid under there, and I'm in this chamber with Gary, and I could feel Jesus, and I was like, oh my God, where am I? Just all these different places and all these different things that we were able to do in the beginning of this company. And then Gary would teach, and like Terry was talking about the classes in the beginning and the raindrop classes, and us being all of us were facilitators. Anna and I was every one of us were facilitators at all the different class. Gary level 1s, Gary levels 2, Gary emotional classes. And I happened to be the great fortune, Gail Ann and I happened to be the great fortune to also be facilitators, and we would help people. And we would help people when they were levitating off of the tables, and all the different experiences that we had here, when we were doing this stuff with the oils. So it was just really, really, really life-changing stuff for me. Turn this off here. Okay, hang on one second. Okay, all right. So I just have so much to share about how Young Living has impacted my life and how I built in the beginning. We built person to person every single day, and we shared, and I mailed packages, and I put oils in everybody that came in touch with me. And from doing all the raindrop classes, I have done thousands of raindrops on people. I have done thousands and thousands of raindrops on people. And I've helped so many people receive better wellness. And Terry, I was there when in the audience, when you had that raindrop and your spine changed on the stage. And I was like, oh my God, where am I? I was like, oh my, it was so, and I was there for Chèrie when you first met Gary in the tent, and Gary gave you the protocol. I was standing almost next to you when you got that protocol. When Gary gave you the protocol that saved your life, I was like, okay, who is this guy? He's looking in people's eyes and telling people, downloading exactly what they need into their lives. And I was like, okay, I'm totally committed to this guy. I've never been so committed to any network marketer person who really, Gary wasn't a network marketer at all, but a leader of a company. I'm totally committed to his vision of bringing essential oils to the world because of who he was and how he always, every second to the day he died, wanting to help others. That's who he was. He wanted to help others. And I have so many products here that he made for Gail Ann. Mary knows. He would make a product and he would send it to Gail Ann ahead of time before it came out and before the rest of us got. Like I have bottles of Cardio Gize and so many different products that we got ahead of time. So it's been just a real journey, and I don't want to talk too long because we've been on here forever. But I got a feelings kit here. I got a feelings kit, and just all these different oils and different things that that we could talk about and spend hours and hours and on. All of us could spend hours what we did with Gary and different trips, and that trip, Terry, what we did in Idaho, when we were at the farm together and we're logging, and I got to sleep with Gary and in the room. Mary wasn't there. I got to sleep with him. And I'd have to tell people this. I got to stay in the room with Gary for 2 nights. And I got in there and I got in the room. I was exhausted after working out there all day. And he was doing work on the computer. Says, Gary, I said, aren't you gonna go to sleep? He said, don't worry, Jeff, I got things to do. I got papers to write. I got people to call. So he would do that and I passed out. I passed out I passed out, think of my clothes. I was so tired. I wake up early. He's gone. He's out of the room. He's not there. He's not there. He's not there. So he's making us breakfast or whatever. And then we come back and we get done. We're working in the fields all day. Then he says, okay, from 7 to 10, now I'm going to teach you guys for 3 hours. We're gonna be in class for 3 hours after you worked hard all day. And we did that. And then the next night he did the same thing. And I'm like, don't you sleep? Yeah, I sleep a little, Jeff. I don't need much sleep. It's crazy. And then Terry, I also did the same thing. He drove me from Highland Flats. He took me in the truck, in the trailer, in the ice. And I was scared for my life. We're driving on the roads. It was me and 2 other women, and I went with the truck all the way to Highland. I was like, oh my God. When we talked and we had a great time and we learned so much. These were lifelong experiences for me that bonded me to this man and who he was and his family. I'm just so blessed. And I grew up with the boys and traveled with Mary and Gary overseas when they opened up Europe, and I was over there when the boys were very little. So I've been, like with Chèrie, you've been with them more than anybody, but I just had so many experiences with this family, and this family is, really family to me. So I'm going to leave it at that because we need to move on. There's so much that I know Mary needs to talk about. So I'm going to let Mary finish it off. So thank you for having me.
Jeffrey, thank you so much. One of the things about Jeffrey is whenever he sees you, his arms open up. Before his mouth even opens, his arms open up. And it's like there's an invitation. His arms open up, and it's like, come in for a hug. That's the coolest thing ever. Just if you've had a tough day or you're dealing with something difficult and you see this amazing, tall, wonderful man, and he just catches your eyes and his arms open up. And that's Jeffrey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And one of the things I do want to say is the reason I did start to share essential oils is because I started putting joy on, Carl, which you hated. And I love joy. And every time I put joy on, women spontaneously hug me. So I'm the joy boy. Joy and me, women loved me. I put joy on. It was like, oh my God. So.
And Gail Ann would just sit back there and she goes, yeah, Jeffrey puts joy on.
I put joy on. Spontaneous hugs everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.